Hello, welcome back to the PLS tutorial. In this tutorial, we are going to discuss about a new data type. So let's try to see what we have done so far. We declare a variable, say x number, and in begin we assign a value to x. Okay, so this is simply what we are trying to do. We are trying to create a variable x which can store a scalar variable. In this case, this is a number type. Alright, but a lot of practical cases, it requires that we need to store a values like 5, 10, 15, 20, so on. So what does it mean? That we have to store a collection of elements. Okay, so these individual call elements. So in programming language, a data structure that supports that stores this kind of element is called array. Okay, in PLSQL we have an array support, and that array is called VARRAY, okay, or called variable array. Okay, so what we have done here, so here is the bigger picture that PLSQL data type are two types, like it is scalar, like it's a number, date, varchar, and all this thing. Then we have composite data type. In composite data type we can have a records type, which we have discussed in the previous videos, and we PLSQL support this kind of manipulation by three different avenues, and those are called collections, PLSQL collection. In this collection we are going to focus mostly on VARRAY. Okay, so in this collection you will understand what is VARRAY and how it helps us in dealing with this kind of problem where we need to store multiple elements. So let's take an example here. First thing is that we need to define VARRAY as a user defined data type. That means unlike number, varchar, where PLSQL gives you some data type, predefined data type, in contrary we have to define a type ABC is a VARRAY. This is a syntax, is VARRAY of 10. That means here we are saying that the maximum size of this array is 10, and then it will contain what? It will contain number elements. Then at line number 4, what we define? We declare a variable v2 of type ABC. So that means at line number 4 we have a variable v2, but this variable v2 is just defined, it's just a declare, it's not assigned or anything is happening, so therefore it is going to point to null. Then at line number 7 we are trying to assign value 78 to the first element, but since v2 is pointing to null, this line number 7 is going to give him an exception, give an error, that you are referencing to a uninitialized VARRAY or uninitialized collection. So that means this is, whatever I'm showing you, this is a wrong code. Okay, so basically what I need to do, I need to initialize, then I can assign. So to initialize, what we need to do, we need to call in line number 7. So here the same code I have written, but I have written two more lines of code. So what we have shown here, we are saying v2 is equal to ABC, the function ABC. So what we are trying to do here, this ABC is called the constructor. Okay, so what is must be done, that this variable should be initialized with the help of a system defined function called constructor. The constructor has the same name as the VARRAY type. Since the VARRAY type is ABC, therefore the constructor name is ABC. Okay, so now at the line number 7, when I have done this thing, then what happens is that instead of pointing to null, it's now pointing to a area where we can store something. Then what I have done in line number 8, we extend. So that means basically here we create one place where we can store something. So at line number 8 we extend this thing. So that means we know we have a place where we can put something. So that is, you can think about the extend is going to allocate, actually is going to allocate a place where you can put the value. So v2 178, that means 78 is stored here, and this is the subscript, this index is 1. And next, if I want to allocate another, if we want to assign another element, then again I need to do v2.extend. When we do v2.extend, I'll put another value, let's say I put 23 and so on. Similarly, I can go up to 10 because my size is 10. I cannot go more than 10. Okay, so this is how we are going to assign a value to the VARRAY, or this is the way that you initialize. Okay, so the summarization is that initially whenever you don't do anything, it's just pointing to null, and the moment you call the constructor, a place is allocated, and by calling this extend, you actually going to create a space so that you can put a number, and then in line number 9 we assign. The same thing also can be done by another way. In this example, what we have done in line number 3, we have created a variable v1, and then we are calling the constructor with bunch of values. Okay, so what is happening here at line number 7 essentially is this. So v1 is now pointing to 1 2 3 4 5 6, and then there's some spaces there, empty spaces there. Okay, so up to 10, and then if I do dmos output put line v1 1, the value is 1. Right, so this is way how you initialize. Let's take some more example. So here I'm just basically doing a little bit more. So like, ABC is this thing, and then v2 is ABC, so therefore so v2 here is pointing to null. Okay, and then in line number 8 I initialize, so that means v2 is no more pointing to null, it's pointing to some place where we can put some elements. Okay, then what I have done here in line number 9 to line number 13, I extend, and I inside the for loop I extend v2 and then allocate 1 to 10, 1 2 3 up to 10. Okay, so basically by using this code I populate. I also give another example where I have v underscore emp. So v underscore emp, so what v underscore emp is doing, I'm executing a cursor for loop, and inside that cursor for loop I'm keep extending, and then whatever the value of employee number I am getting from the database, I am populating the v underscore emp VARRAY. And as you know that I cannot go more than 10 elements, so therefore I just make sure that my query is going to fetch less than 10. So in this case I'll get 9 elements, so therefore I'll get 9 employee number into the VARRAY called v underscore emp. Let's say it start from 7839 7840 and so on up to 9th, and then one thing is remain empty. Alright, so this is what the example of what I showed you. In the first example I populate using a for loop. In second example I am getting from the database, and using a cursor for loop I am populating the v underscore emp VARRAY. Okay, so next thing what I'm showing is that, okay, so we define this collection v1 or v2 or whatever, right? And then so we define and initialize and all this thing. So how do I manipulate this VARRAY? Okay, so basically what happens, in order to manipulate this VARRAY, Oracle provides you lot of predefined built-in functions. Okay, built in, basically Oracle gives you built-in functions and procedures, okay, to operates these collections, operates these VARRAYs. Okay, so basically this is called collection methods. Okay, so collection methods are useful to manage the collection. There are different types of method, so let's basically go an overview. The first one is count or limit. So let's take an example. Say for example, in this case I have v2 is 1 to 10. So if I do something like this, say v2 dot count, it will give me the number of elements in that array, in that VARRAY. So in this case it will give me 10. Say for example, if I have a VARRAY, I create another VARRAY, say v3, and v3 I just kept 1 and 2, only two values are there. Then in this case v2 dot count will give me 2. Another variable is there called, another method is there called limit. v2 dot limit will give me the maximum size of this VARRAY. In this case it will be 10. Okay, so count and limit. So count is going to give me the size, the number of elements in that VARRAY, and limit will give me the maximum size. Then another variable, another method called exist, and it will take a parameter called n. So exist n will return true if nth element is available on that VARRAY. That means if I have a VARRAY v2 and then I have just only 1, 2 and 3, and if I do v2 dot exist 1, that means if this element is exist, in this case which it is, because you know the nth element, the first element is existing because we have a value of 1, then this is going to return me true. If however I give v2 dot exist 9, since there is no number 9th element exists here in v2, therefore v2 dot exist 9 will give me false. Then two more methods called first and last. First give me the index of the first element of the VARRAY. So in this case it will always v2 dot first will always give me 1. So any VARRAY dot first will give you 1, whereas v2 dot last will give me the last element where we have a value. In this case we have 3. Then two more values called prior, next. That means if I do v2 dot prior 2, that means the value will be 3. So basically next element, next index, sorry v2 dot prior 2 will give me 1, the previous index before 2. So whatever you give before the previous of 2. Whereas if I do v2 prior 1, it will give me null, because before 1 there is no more. Similarly v2 dot next 1 will give me 2, because you know next index is 2, and then v2 dot next of 3 will give me null, because there is no more after null, after 3. So you use basically prior and next to traverse the loop, traverse the VARRAY. We'll give an example pretty soon. Then another called extend, trim. So extend we have already seen. So by extend means, like you know what I'm going to do, I'm going to extend the VARRAY to basically to initially just like this. So whenever I do extend, basically I create a space so that I can allocate a number there. Then trim is the opposite of extend. So in this case, if I do v2 dot trim 3, that means I deleted the third element. Okay, so after v2 dot 3 v2 dot trim 3, if I do v2 dot count, the value will be 2, because just have only 2 elements. Okay, so trim is going to trim. If I do v2 dot trim, sorry, if you do v2 dot trim 3, then it will going to delete 3 elements from the end. That means if I do v2 dot trim 3, then all these things are gone. But however, if I just give v2 dot trim 1, then it's just going to delete last element, so that in that case just only 3 will be gone. Okay, so this is called collection methods. By using collection methods, we basically manipulate the VARRAY. And here is an example how we are going to manipulate the VARRAY. Let's say we have an array of ABC. The VARRAY name is ABC, and the VARRAY is of maximum size of 10 elements, and it can store number. And then this v1 I declare a variable, and that the variable I initialize with values like 1 2 3 4 5 6, and then I have couple of elements which is left empty. Then so here is I'm going to use the collection method. I want to do v1 dot count. So in this case, v1 dot count will give me 6, because I just have only 6 elements in this thing. But v1 dot limit will give me 10, because the maximum size of this array is 10. So instead of if I started with 20, then VARRAY should have given me, limit should have given me 20. Okay, so but that is not the case. We're just going to give 10. Okay, v1 dot first will give me 1, because the first element is 1. v1 dot last will give me 6. The last index is 6 here. Then what I did here, I trim the last 2 elements. So line number 10 essentially remove 6 and 5. After that, what I am doing, using the first and last method, I can traverse the array, the VARRAY, using a for loop. So I create a for loop counter, and then from where do I start? I start with v1 dot first. So v1 dot first will give me the index of the first element. Index of the first element is 1. It's always 1. And index of the last element is 4. So basically I'm going to go from I is equal to 1 to 4. Then I'm going to print the values of v1 1, v1 2, v1 3, v1 4. Then if I do v1 dot last, or whatever writing line number 14, so v1 dot last will give me, this will give me the 4. So essentially this is how you are going to manipulate a VARRAY, by using the collection methods. Collection methods are very powerful, and you will use them creatively to solve a lot of your problems.